Nora Mae Whitaker did not beg the wagon to stop. She did not wave her arms when the driver looked back and saw her in the road. She did not call after the laughing men when the wheels rolled on and left her standing in a cloud of yellow dust with one hand wrapped around a cracked carpet bag and the other pressed against the folded hiring notice in her pocket. She had learned young that people enjoyed refusing a woman more when she gave them the pleasure of asking. So Nora did not ask. She only lifted her chin, adjusted the collar of her faded brown dress, and started walking toward the Broken Spur Ranch, where a widowed cattleman named Caleb Rusk had advertised for help moving 300 head before the first mountain snow. The notice had said the work was rough, the pay was honest, and soft hands would not last a day. Nora's hands were not soft. The town of Mercy Crossing sat behind her, small and mean in the late September sun. It was the kind of town where every porch had eyes, and every eye had an opinion. She had felt those opinions from the moment the stage dropped her off at noon. Women had looked at the width of her hips before they looked at the dust on her hem. Men had looked at the fullness of her arms and smiled as if her body were something placed in the street for their amusement. At the mercantile, a clerk had told her the Broken Spur needed cattle hands, not bakery girls. Outside the telegraph office, a woman in a blue bonnet had whispered loud enough for 3 storefronts to hear, "Poor thing. Built like a rain barrel and still trying to hire herself out like a man." Nora heard it. She kept walking. She was 24 years old, broad-shouldered, heavy through the waist, round-faced, and stronger than most men guessed until they saw her lift something they could not. Her hair was dark auburn and usually pinned badly because pins cost money and thick hair had opinions of its own. Her eyes were gray, steady, and quicker than people liked. She had a face that might have been called pretty if her body had not arrived first in everyone's judgment. That was how the world worked. It saw one thing and thought it had seen all. Nora's mother had died when she was 15. Her father had spent the next 6 years hauling freight between Kansas and Colorado until a winter fever took him in Pueblo. After that, Nora cooked in boarding houses, washed sheets in hotels, mended clothes for miners, kept accounts for a liveryman who paid her half of what he promised, and learned to carry humiliation the way other women carried sewing baskets, close to the body, quietly, without spilling. But Mercy Crossing had no work for her, and she had 31 cents, a biscuit wrapped in cloth, and one last hiring notice. The Broken Spur lay 7 miles north toward the foothills, past sagebrush flats and a creek that twisted through cottonwoods. Nora had been told the walk would take 2 hours if she was young and fit, half a day if she was not. By the 2nd mile, her boots had begun rubbing blisters into both heels. By the 3rd, the biscuit was gone. By the 4th, the wind changed and came down from the mountains with a bite beneath it. A rider approached from the north near mid-afternoon, a thin man on a chestnut horse. He slowed when he saw her. His hat was good felt, his coat too clean for ranch work, his mustache trimmed with banker's patience. "You lost?" he asked. "No." He looked toward the road behind her. "Mercy Crossing is that way. I know. Broken Spur is this way. I know that too." His eyes traveled over her, slow and obvious. "Caleb Rusk hired you?" He put up a notice. "I'm answering it." "For cattle work?" "For camp work. Cooking, stores, laundry, mending, tallying, whatever else keeps men from falling apart before the herd gets to rail." The man smiled. It was a narrow smile, not meant to warm anything. "Rusk needs riders, not comfort." "Then it's lucky I don't provide much comfort." He laughed once, as though she had surprised him against his will. "Name's Everett Sloan. I hold paper on half the ranches in this valley, including the Broken Spur." Nora said nothing. "You tell Rusk I'll be by before shipment," Sloan said. "If the herd isn't at the rail by Thursday, his note matures in default. Snow or no snow." "Seems like something you could tell him yourself." "I intend to." He leaned slightly in the saddle. "But I enjoy watching news travel." He clicked his tongue, and the horse stepped past her. After a few yards, Sloan looked back. "You'll never make it by dark." Nora shifted the carpet bag to her other hand. "Then I'd better not stop." He rode away smiling. The Broken Spur appeared at the edge of evening, tucked against a rise of red stone, where the prairie began lifting itself toward the mountains. It was not the poorest ranch Nora had seen, but it looked tired in the bones. The fences stood, though 2 sections leaned. The barn roof held, though one corner sagged under old snow damage. A line of cattle moved beyond the far corral, restless and lowing, their breath beginning to show in the cooling air. The yard smelled of hay, leather, wood smoke, and worry. A boy of about 10 sat on an overturned bucket near the kitchen door, polishing a saddle buckle with fierce concentration. He looked up when Nora came through the gate. His eyes widened, not unkindly, but with the blunt astonishment of children who have not yet learned to hide every thought. "You walked from town?" "Yes." "All the way?" "Unless there's another town hidden in my skirt." The boy stared, then grinned. "I'm Luke. Nora Whitaker. You the new cook?" "If Mr. Rusk says I am." "He better. Pete burns beans so bad even the pigs look offended." From inside the barn came the sound of a man cursing at metal. A moment later, Caleb Rusk stepped out carrying a broken bridle strap. He was tall, somewhere in his mid-30s, with dark hair going gray at the temples earlier than it should have, and a face cut by wind, grief, and too many seasons of not sleeping enough. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows. His boots were muddy. He had the look of a man who noticed everything, because missing one thing might cost him the rest. His eyes went to Nora's face first. That made her wary. "Nora Whitaker?" he asked. "Yes." "You wrote from Abilene?" "I sent a wire from there. I said I could cook for a crew and keep tallies." "You didn't mention walking 7 miles." "You didn't ask." A corner of his mouth moved, barely. "You eat today?" "A biscuit." "That all?" It was a large biscuit in spirit. Luke laughed. Caleb did not, but his eyes changed. Not pity. Something more useful. Assessment. "I've got 18 men moving cattle at dawn," Caleb said. "A storm is coming down from the high country inside a week. We need 300 head gathered, watered, counted, and driven to the rail spur before Thursday night, or the bank takes this place." Everett Sloan told me. Caleb's jaw tightened. "He passed you on the road?" "He did not offer a ride." "No," Caleb said quietly. "He wouldn't." Nora looked toward the cattle. "How many hands short are you?" That was the first question that seemed to truly catch him. "3," he said. "How many wagons?" "2. 1 chuck wagon, 1 supply wagon." "Who's running the chuck wagon now?" A gray-bearded man came to the kitchen door with a wooden spoon in one hand and suspicion in both eyes. "I am, and I'm too old for it." "This is Pete Harlan," Caleb said. "He was my wife's uncle. He knows cattle better than cooking." Pete snorted. "A fence post knows cooking better than me." Nora set her carpet bag down. "Where's the flour?" Pete blinked. "You want to start now?" "I walked 7 miles and met your banker. I'd rather end the day by doing something pleasant." "Cooking is pleasant?" Luke asked. "Compared to bankers, most things are." Pete laughed then, a dry bark that seemed to surprise him. The kitchen told Nora what the ranch would not. A woman had once ruled it with firm hands and a loving eye. There were blue curtains over the window, faded but clean. A row of spice jars sat on a shelf, labels written in careful script. A cracked yellow bowl had been mended with wire. The stove was clean but neglected in the corners. The table was solid, scarred by years of work and meals and elbows. One chair near the end had not been used in some time. It was too clean. Caleb's wife had been gone long enough for dust to gather around her absence, but not long enough for anyone to move it. Nora did not ask about her. She had been poor too long to waste tenderness by trampling through another person's grief. She washed her hands, tied on an apron, and took inventory. Flour low, coffee decent, beans plentiful but improperly stored, bacon nearly gone, dried apples enough for 2 meals if stretched, onions sprouting in a basket, potatoes soft but usable, salt pork wrapped well, cornmeal dry, molasses nearly empty. She worked quickly. Pete tried to help until she gave him a knife and told him to slice onions thin enough to repent for past sins. Luke carried water. Caleb stood in the doorway until Nora turned without looking at him. "Mr. Rusk, a man blocking a door is just a fence with boots." Pete made a choking noise. Luke nearly dropped the water. Caleb stepped aside. "Yes, ma'am." That first meal was simple. Beans with salt, pork, onions browned in fat, corn cakes crisp at the edge, coffee strong enough to make the room stand straighter, and dried apples warmed with the last ribbon of molasses. The ranch hands came in tired and doubtful. They looked at Nora. Some tried not to stare. Some did not bother. A broad young rider named Clay Mercer nudged the man beside him and muttered, "Did Rusk hire a cook or a grain sack?" Nora heard him. So did Caleb. Before Caleb could speak, Nora set a plate in front of Clay and said, "Careful. Grain sacks keep men alive through winter. Mouths mostly just let heat out." The table went silent. Then Pete laughed so hard he coughed into his coffee. Clay flushed red, but hunger conquered pride. He ate. Then he ate again. By the end of supper, nobody complained. That night, Nora slept in a small room off the wash house. The bed was narrow, the blanket rough, the walls thin enough to hear the wind testing them. But the door closed. There was a latch on the inside. She sat on the edge of the bed and removed her boots slowly, pulling one blister open. Blood marked the heel of her stocking. She looked at it a moment, then wrapped it with a strip of cloth from her petticoat. She allowed herself 1 minute to feel the walk, the road, the boys laughing in town, Sloane's smile, Clay's mutter, the way Caleb had said "yes, ma'am," without making it a joke. 1 minute. Then she lay down. Before dawn, the Broken Spur woke in pieces. Horses stamped. Men coughed. Bacon hissed. Coffee boiled. By 4:30, Nora had breakfast ready and dinner bundles wrapped. She had also counted the canteens, filled 2 extra water barrels, and marked each sack of meal with a charcoal line so she would know if anyone dipped into stores without telling her. Caleb entered while she was tying the last bundle. He stopped short. "You were up early." "So were you." "I had horses to check. I had men to keep from whining." Luke, half asleep at the table, smiled into his cup. Caleb lifted one of the wrapped bundles. "You made extra?" "2 men will forget theirs. One will drop his in mud. One will pretend he isn't hungry and become useless by noon. I don't know which ones yet, so I made 4. Pete pointed his spoon at Caleb. "She's mean enough to be right." Caleb looked at Nora's hands, at the neat row of bundles, at the ledger she had already opened on the counter. "You keep figures?" "I keep what needs keeping." "Then keep count of stores and water. Nothing leaves without marking." "I already started." He stepped closer and looked at the ledger. She had columns for flour, meal, beans, coffee, salt pork, dried fruit, canteens, horse grain, lamp oil, bandages, rope, and spare tack. His eyes moved down the page, and for the first time since she had arrived, the stillness in him cracked enough to show surprise. "Good," he said. Just one word. Nora did not look up. "It usually is." The roundup began hard and went harder. The cattle had spread into broken country north of the creek, and several cows had calves too young to move fast. The first day brought dust, shouting, and one thrown rider. The second day brought a lame horse. The third brought news that the storm had crossed the pass sooner than expected. Snow in the high country did not ask permission before coming down. Nora became the hinge of the camp. She cooked, packed, mended, counted, washed, and watched. When a cinch strap frayed, she replaced it before it broke. When a water barrel leaked, she drove a sliver of cedar into the seam and sealed it with softened pitch. When Pete's cough worsened, she put him to peeling potatoes and took over the chuck wagon route herself. "You can't drive that wagon over North Ridge," Clay said. "Road's rough." Nora tightened the reins over the mule team. "Then the road and I have something in common." The ridge road was worse than rough. It was narrow, rutted, and edged with stone. The wagon jolted so hard, the coffee pot bounced off its hook and would have spilled if Luke had not caught it with both hands. Nora's arms burned from holding the team steady. Her body rocked with every hole, every stone, every cruel drop of the wheels. She was not graceful, she was not quick, but she was steady, and steady got the chuck wagon to the north camp before noon. The men were too hungry to laugh. By the 4th day, even Clay stopped making remarks. Not because he had grown kind, but because Nora had repaired his torn glove without being asked, and a man who wanted warm fingers in mountain wind learned when to shut his mouth. That evening, after supper at the North Camp, Nora found Luke sitting behind the wagon with a little tin soldier in his palm. One arm was broken off. "My mother gave it to me," he said before she asked. "She said he looked brave even though he was dented." Nora sat beside him on a crate. The sky above the foothills was bruised purple. The air smelled of smoke and cold. "What was her name?" "Anna." Luke rubbed the soldier with his thumb. "She died last winter. Fever. Pa, don't talk about her much." Some grief sits so deep that talking feels like digging with bare hands. Luke looked at her with solemn eyes. Does it ever stop hurting? Nora considered lying. Adults often lied to children because they mistook softness for mercy. No, she said, but it changes shape. One day it stops being the only thing in the room. Luke nodded as if that answer was heavy but could be carried. Can you fix him? She took the soldier. I can try. That night, by lantern light, she shaped a tiny arm from wire and scrap tin, wrapping it so carefully that her fingers cramped. Caleb found her there after checking the horses. He saw the soldier and stopped. Luke asked you? Yes. Caleb sat across from her. For a moment, he looked younger and more tired. Anna bought that from a peddler, paid too much for it, said every boy needed something foolish to love. She sounds wise. She was. His voice thinned, then steadied. She would have liked the way you talked to Luke. Nora kept her eyes on the wire. Children deserve honest words. So do grown men, though they dodge them worse. She glanced up. Caleb was looking at her hands. Not at her body, not at the parts of her that strangers treated like a public notice. Her hands. You work like someone who learned before she had a choice, he said. Most useful things are learned that way. I'm sorry for what are learned that way. Clay said. I've heard worse. That doesn't make it right. No, she said. It only makes it familiar. Caleb's face tightened, not with pity, but anger held on her behalf. Nora looked down quickly. She knew how to stand under insult. She did not yet know how to stand under defense. The next morning brought the first true crisis. The main herd had been pushed into the long valley below Split Tooth Ridge when a calf broke through a weak fence line and dragged 20 head with it. The cattle spilled toward a dry wash that cut deep through the sage. If they scattered into the broken gullies beyond, they would lose a full day gathering them, maybe two. They did not have two. Nora saw it from the Chuckwagon Hill before half the riders understood what was happening. Luke, she said, hold the team. Then she climbed down and ran. She did not run beautifully. Her skirt caught her knees, her breath tore in her chest, but she knew animals. Her father had hauled freight horses for years, and frightened animals all believed the same lie. That forward was safety. She reached the wash ahead of the lead cow, grabbed a canvas tarp from a fence pile, and snapped it wide with both arms. The tarp cracked in the wind like thunder. The cow swerved. The cattle behind her bunched and turned, confused by the sudden shape. Caleb saw the turn from horseback and drove hard across the ridge, shouting to the other riders. Tomas swung wide. Clay cut off the rear. In minutes that felt like an hour, the break was closed. When it was done, Nora stood ankle-deep in dust, tarp hanging from both fists, her breath ragged, and her face flushed hot. Clay rode up first. He stared at her as if some arithmetic in his head had failed. You turned them, he said. They were already turning, I argued. Tomas laughed softly. Caleb rode in last, eyes sharp with relief. You could have been trampled. Yes. That all you've got to say? I could also have stayed on the hill and watched us lose Thursday. He looked at her a long moment. Then he removed his hat, wiped his brow, and said, Thank you, Nora. It was the first time he used her given name. She felt it more than she wanted to. That night, the table changed. It happened without announcement. Clay passed her coffee before serving himself. Tomas moved a crate so she could sit near the fire. Pete, whose cough had eased, told her the beans were better than anything the Broken Spur had eaten since Anna died, then pretended he had not said something tender. Luke placed the repaired soldier beside her plate like a guard. Small things. But small things were how belonging first entered a room. The storm moved faster the next day. Clouds came over the mountains in a dark wall, piling high and cold. The wind turned mean. Caleb rode back from the ridge with his face set hard. We lost a day, he told Amos and Pete near the wagon. Maybe more. Snow by tomorrow night. The rail spur is still 2 days out, Pete said. If we push through Miller's Cut. 1. Pete went quiet. Nora looked up from tying sacks. What's Miller's Cut? A pass through the lower rocks, Caleb said. Steep, narrow, bad footing. We don't use it with a herd unless the devil is behind us. Nora looked at the sky. He appears to be gaining. Caleb did not smile. The old bridge at the ravine may not hold. May not? Nobody's taken cattle over it in 5 years. Then we check it. Nora. If it holds, it saves a day. If it doesn't, we know before 300 cattle find out for us. Pete grunted. She's right. Caleb looked annoyed that everyone knew it. They reached Miller's Cut by noon. The pass was a knife wound through red stone, sloping down toward a ravine crossed by an old timber bridge. Snow flurries had begun, tiny white flecks that vanished on the ground. The cattle bunched uneasy at the mouth of the cut. Caleb dismounted and tested the first planks. They groaned. Luther crossed halfway and came back shaking his head. She won't take the herd, he said. Maybe riders, not cattle. Caleb stared at the bridge like hatred could repair timber. Nora walked to the edge and looked down. The ravine was not deep enough to kill every animal that fell, only enough to break legs, wagons, and hope. She studied the bridge supports. The left side sagged where a lower brace had rotted out. The right side still carried weight. The planking was bad in the center, but stronger near the rail. What about taking them single file along the right rail? She asked. Cattle don't single file across fear, Caleb said. No, but they follow feed and pressure. Pete turned toward her. What are you thinking? She looked at the supply wagon. We lay canvas along the center, so they don't see gaps. Rope the left rail closed. Drive only 6 at a time. Put grain sacks at the far end. Quiet hands, no shouting. 1 rider ahead, 2 behind. Slow enough that fear doesn't spread. Clay stared. That'll take hours. So will going around. Caleb looked at the bridge, then at the sky. The first flakes were sticking now in shadowed places. We'll need someone on foot at the near edge, Tomas said, to keep them tight to the right. I'll do it, Nora said. No, Caleb said immediately. Everyone heard the force in it. Nora turned to him. Because I'm a woman, or because I'm heavy? His face changed. Because if a steer swings wrong, you won't have room to move. Then I'll make sure he doesn't swing wrong. Nora. Caleb. She held his gaze. You hired me because soft hands wouldn't last. Mine have lasted. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Pete said, very quietly, We're losing light. Caleb looked as though every choice before him was a blade. At last, he nodded once. 6 at a time. Slow. They worked. Canvas went down. Ropes tightened. Grain was poured in a shallow line. The first 6 cattle balked, tossed heads, and tried to turn. Nora stood at the near edge with a long pole wrapped in cloth. Not striking, only guiding pressure. Her size, the thing so many had mocked, became a wall. Solid, calm, unmoving. The lead steer tested left, saw canvas, rope, and Nora, then stepped right. 1 hoof, then another. The bridge creaked, the animal froze. Nora spoke low. Not sweetly, firmly. Go on then. You're not the first fool afraid of a path that holds. The steer moved. 6 crossed. Then 6 more. Snow thickened. Hands numbed. Men stopped speaking except when necessary. Caleb rode the far side, receiving the cattle. Tomas and Clay worked the rear. Pete handled grain. Luke, forbidden to help near the bridge, carried rope and looked older with every trip. Half the herd crossed before dusk. Then, with a crack like a rifle shot, one of the center planks split under a steer's hind leg. The animal lurched. The cattle behind panicked. The line compressed. Nora moved before anyone could call out. She stepped onto the bridge, grabbed the loose rope, and shoved her shoulder against the nearest steer's flank with all the strength in her broad body. Easy, she shouted. Easy, you big coward. The steer shifted right. Caleb rode forward on the far side, voice low and fierce. Tomas closed the back. Clay jumped down and threw his weight against the rope beside Nora. Together they held the line. The trapped hoof came free. The steer crossed. The bridge shuddered but stood. When the last animal reached the far side under a bruised dusk sky, no one cheered. Men were too cold, too tired, too aware of how close they had come to ruin. Caleb walked back across the bridge alone. Snow clung to his hat and shoulders. He stopped in front of Nora. You saved the herd, he said. No, she answered. The bridge held. You held it first. She looked away. Clay took off his hat. Miss Whitaker, he said, awkwardly. I was wrong to speak like I did. Nora looked at him. Yes, he swallowed. I'm sorry. She nodded. Be better tomorrow. He gave a short laugh, half shame and half relief. Yes, ma'am. They made camp beyond the pass in falling snow. Supper was late, thin, and hot enough to feel like mercy. Nora's arms trembled when she lifted the coffee pot. Caleb noticed and took it from her without a word, pouring for the men himself. Nobody made a joke. Near midnight, while the others slept, Caleb found Nora sitting under the wagon awning with the ledger open on her lap. A lantern swung above her, making gold circles in the dark. "You should sleep," he said. "So should you." "I can't." "Neither can I." He sat on an overturned crate. "What are you figuring? Cattle count, time, feed, rail deadline, and how much Mr. Sloan stands to gain if you miss Thursday." Caleb's expression hardened. "Everything. Why does he want Broken Spur so badly? More than other ranches? Grass, creek access, rail proximity." "No," Nora said slowly. "Those are reasons to want any good ranch. He wants this one enough to ride out smiling before snow." Caleb watched her. She turned the ledger around. "Your father's old note mentions a mineral clause." His eyes narrowed. "Worthless. Everyone said so." "Who said?" "Sloan's assessor 5 years ago." Nora tapped the paper. "And yet the clause allows transfer of subsurface rights with the land in default. That doesn't mean there's anything under it." "No, but it means Sloan thinks there is." Caleb leaned forward. Nora took another folded paper from the ledger. "I found this tucked behind the freight receipts. It's a survey bill from a man named Daniel Price, paid by Everett Sloan last spring, for mapping coal seams north of Mercy Crossing." Caleb read it. His face went still in a way that was worse than anger. "North of Mercy Crossing includes my land." "Yes." The storm pressed against the wagon canvas. Men slept around them, unaware that the battle had shifted from cattle and snow to paper and greed. "If I accuse him without proof," Caleb said, "I look desperate." "You are desperate, not helpful, but you are not empty-handed." Nora closed the ledger. "Get the herd shipped, pay the note current, then make him explain why a lender secretly surveyed land he claimed was failing." Caleb looked at her for a long time. "Where did you learn to read paper like this?" "From men who assumed a fat girl carrying laundry could not understand what they left on desks." Pain crossed his face, quick and quiet. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be accurate." Something like a smile touched his mouth. "You are a hard woman to pity." "Good. I have no use for it." "No," he said. "You don't." The herd reached the rail spur Thursday afternoon with snow chasing them across the flats. The last mile was chaos. Cattle bawled, horses slipped, men shouted through white wind. The rail agent stood under the depot, awning with a pocket watch, looking doubtful and cold. Everett Sloan stood beside him in a black coat, smiling as though winter itself were on his payroll. Nora rode on the supply wagon bench, reins in hands, face raw from wind. She saw Sloan's smile fade when the first cattle came through the blowing snow. She saw Caleb at the front of the herd, hat low, shoulders squared against everything that had tried to bend him. By sunset, the cattle were counted and accepted. Not all 300. They had lost 4 to lameness, 2 to straying, 1 to a broken leg before Miller's cut. But 293 head stood in the rail pens, marketable and alive. The agent signed the receipt. Caleb took it to Sloan, with snow melting on the brim of his hat. "Payment will be made from sale proceeds, as agreed." Sloan's face had gone pale with controlled fury. "You cut that close." "Close still counts at rail." The agent coughed to hide a smile. Nora climbed down from the wagon with the ledger under one arm. Her knees nearly gave way, but she made them behave. She walked to Caleb's side and handed him the survey bill. Caleb looked at Sloan. "And after payment, you and I will discuss Daniel Price." For the first time since Nora had met him, Everett Sloan's confidence slipped. "I don't know the name," he said. "Good," Nora said. "Then you won't mind saying so before Judge Bell and the county recorder." Sloan looked at her with pure hatred. He no longer saw a joke, or a heavy woman on a road, or a cook who did not know her place. He saw what she had always been, a person who noticed. That frightened him more than her body ever had. By morning, the sale was recorded. The note brought current, and Judge Bell had agreed to review Sloan's private survey of debtor land. The Broken Spur was not free forever. No ranch was. Winter would still come. Roofs would still leak. Cattle would still sicken. Money would still run thin. But the ranch would not be taken that week, and sometimes survival was not a door thrown open but a latch sliding shut against the storm. They returned to Broken Spur 2 days later, under a cold blue sky. Neighbors had heard by then. News traveled fast when it carried defeat for a man like Sloan. At the ranch gate, 3 wagons waited. Mrs. Hodge from the South Creek had brought bread. The Porter brothers had brought fence rails. Old Mr. Dempsey had come with 2 sons to help shore the barn before snow settled heavy. Nora looked at them from the wagon bench, unsure what to do with the sight. Caleb rode beside her. Folks come when they know there's something left to save. Some of them laughed first. Most people are fools before breakfast. Some improve by supper. At the yard, Luke ran to meet them, though he had ridden in only an hour before and had no reason to be that excited except that he was 10 and alive with relief. He threw his arms around Caleb first, then Nora. She stiffened out of habit. Then his small arms tightened around her middle with complete trust. "You came back," he said into her apron. "I was on the wagon. It would have been rude to vanish." He looked up. "Are you staying?" The yard seemed to quiet around the question. Pete stopped unloading sacks. Clay stopped near the corral. Caleb dismounted slowly. Nora looked toward the kitchen window. The blue curtains moved slightly in the draft. Smoke rose from the chimney. The windmill beyond the barn turned smooth, and even after Clay's repair, the broken spur looked no less worn than before, but different somehow. "Not healed. Healing. I was hired through Roundup," she said. Luke's face fell. Caleb stepped closer. He held an envelope in one hand and a folded paper in the other. That was the first agreement. Nora looked at the paper. "I wrote another," he said. "If you want it, $12 a month, room and board, authority over stores, camp accounts, kitchen, supply orders, and any man foolish enough to steal from the coffee tin. Winter work guaranteed. Spring terms to be discussed." Pete muttered, "Give her authority over biscuits too, for the love of mercy." A few men laughed softly. Nora did not. She looked at the paper because paper mattered. Paper kept kindness from turning slippery. Paper meant a woman did not have to guess whether gratitude would vanish after supper. "You wrote it down," she said. "Yes." "Why?" "Because you deserve terms, not promises." She took the paper, read every line, then read it again. Her eyes caught on her own name. Nora Mae Whitaker, employed as supply manager and camp cook for Broken Spur Ranch. Not girl. Not charity. Not burden. Employed. The word struck something deep enough to hurt. Caleb held out the envelope. Full wages through Roundup, plus bonus for the bridge, the herd tally, and saving me from Sloan's mineral trick. "That is too much." "No," he said. "It is less than the truth." She did not take it immediately. He lowered his voice so only she could hear. "Nora, I am not paying you because I feel sorry. I am paying because the ranch owes you. I owe you." She looked at him then. "People will say things." "Yes, they already have." "Yes, they will say, you hired a fat woman because she made herself useful, and you are too honorable to send her away." Caleb's eyes did not move from hers. "Then they will have accidentally wandered near the truth and still missed it." Her throat tightened. He stepped back, giving her room to choose. That mattered most. He did not reach for her hand. He did not ask in front of everyone for something she would feel cruel refusing. He simply stood there with his hat in his hand and let the offer be work before it was anything else. "What truth?" she asked. "That you are useful," he said, "and sharp and stubborn and kinder than you pretend. That this ranch runs better when you are in it. That Luke laughs more. That Pete complains less, which may be a miracle worth reporting to church. That I have spent years thinking survival meant holding everything alone, and then you walked 7 miles in bad boots and proved me wrong before supper." No one moved. Nora glanced at the men, at the neighbors, at Luke's hopeful face. She hated being watched. She hated wanting to stay while being watched. But the old fear, the one that told her every room would eventually push her out, had grown tired. Or perhaps she had. "I will not be hidden in the kitchen when business is discussed," she said. Caleb nodded. "No, I will order flour before men start scraping barrels. Yes, I will not serve weak coffee." "God forbid," Pete said. "I will keep my own wages. They're yours. And if Clay makes one more grain sack remark, I will assign him laundry until spring." Clay lifted both hands. "I welcome reform, Miss Whitaker." Nora looked back at Caleb. "Then I'll stay through winter." Luke shouted so loudly, a horse spooked. Pete wiped his eyes and blamed the cold. The neighbors broke into warm laughter. Caleb smiled then, fully, and the change in his face was almost too much to look at. That evening, after the wagons unloaded and the neighbors fed, after the barn braces were set and the first stars came sharp over the foothills, Nora stood alone by the corral fence. The mountains were white at the peaks. Winter waited there, patient and certain. The Broken Spur would be hard work. The roof would need patching. Stores would need stretching. Sloan would not vanish simply because he had been checked once. Nothing ahead promised ease. But ease had never been the thing Nora trusted. Behind her, the kitchen door opened. Caleb stepped out carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her and leaned against the fence at a respectful distance. "Luke put your name on the room door," he said. "With what?" "Charcoal." "Spelled right?" "Close enough to be touching." She smiled into the cup. They stood in silence, watching cattle settle in the dark. After a while, Caleb said, "When I first saw you in the yard, I thought you looked like someone who had been walking away from cruel people for a long time." Nora kept her eyes on the pasture. "I had." "I'm glad you walked this direction." She did not answer at once. The wind moved over the yard, carrying the smell of smoke, hay, coffee, and horses. From inside came Luke's laughter, Pete's grumble, and Clay loudly accepting laundry duty after spilling beans on himself. Nora looked down at her hands wrapped around the cup. Big hands, strong hands, hands that had carried, mended, counted, cooked, gripped rope, held canvas, fixed what others missed, hands people rarely noticed until they needed saving. "So am I," she said. Caleb did not touch her. Not then. He only stood beside her while the night settled around the ranch, and for Nora, that was enough. More than enough. The next morning, the town of Mercy Crossing woke to snow on its rooftops, and a story already traveling faster than the stage. They said the big girl from the road had crossed Miller's Cut with the herd. They said she had found Sloan's trick hidden in paper. They said Caleb Rusk had hired her for winter with written terms. Some said it with admiration, some with disbelief. A few, with the sour tone of people, disappointed that their cruelty had not turned prophetic. Nora did not hear them. She was in the Broken Spur kitchen before dawn, sleeves rolled, ledger open, coffee boiling, biscuits rising, and Luke's crooked charcoal letters still fresh on the washhouse door. Nora Whitaker. Missing an H, but holding steady. When Caleb came in from the barn, he found her marking flour against the winter stores. Pete sat at the table peeling potatoes. Luke fed the stove. Clay entered carrying laundry without being told, which made Pete laugh until he wheezed. Caleb looked around the warm kitchen, at the people moving in it, at the woman who had taken up space there, and somehow made the room larger. Nora looked up. "You're late. It's 5 minutes before breakfast." "Late men defend themselves with numbers." Pete pointed his knife at Caleb. "She's got you there." Caleb hung his hat by the door. "Yes," he said, watching Nora hide a smile and fail. "I expect she does." Outside, snow drifted softly over the yard, covering the old tracks from the road. But the gate stood open. The windmill turned. Smoke rose straight from the chimney. And inside the Broken Spur, Nora Whitaker moved through the kitchen, like a woman who had stopped asking the world to make room for her and had finally found a place that already had. Sometimes the place that finally welcomes us is built one honest act at a time. A meal cooked with care, a hard truth spoken gently, a hand offered when the road turns cold. Nora's strength reminded everyone that kindness is not pity, and dignity grows brighter when others make room for it. A warm home often begins with simple respect. A small note for you. This story was created and fictionalized by AI for entertainment, while also sharing a positive life lesson about resilience, kindness, and human worth.